Best thing you remember. 30 minutes.
After you spend the cookie,
Oh yeah.
Push chair away.
No, you trying to take me out already. Okay, so I want to. This is the first time I've done it without a live audience. So I'm like,
I know, it's a little different, huh?
just a little bit. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about like looking at the camera. We can just our conversation. I'm gonna probably look at the camera just to start. Okay, so this is our ConnextMSP Fall Leadership Speaker Series. I'm gonna do that again. It's always the longest title. Every time I say it, I'm like, ConnextMSP Fall Leader. Okay. This is ConnextMSP's Fall Leadership Speaker Series. I have two really dope folks here with us. I'm not going to introduce them, but if you don't know what the Leadership Speaker Series is, basically we invite professionals of color to come in, talk about their career journey, talk about what they do, why they do what they do, where they come from, and just for you to have people that you can reach out to and build relationships with. So without further ado, would you mind introducing yourself? Basically just say your name, where you work, and what you do. And you don't have to get a whole thing. I'm going to ask you about that in a second.
Okay. Hello, good evening. I'm happy to be here. My name is Amber Jones. I work at the Minnesota Historical Society in our Department of Inclusion and Community Engagement, affectionately known as DICE.
Got it.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Dice.
Oh,
So
God.
when I speak from now on, that's what I'm referring to as
Got
DICE because it's too long of a name to say for a long time.
Got it. And then would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, I don't have any cool acronyms, but my name is Ron Harris. I don't have any dice. I'm Ron Harris. I'm the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Minneapolis.
Awesome.
I work in the City Coordinator's Department, and we can talk about what that means.
Yep. So first thing I always like to ask people is just tell a little bit like where you're from, where you grew up. Was it a bunch of y'all in the house? Was it, just you? Like just talk about where you're from, and then maybe a little bit like either where you went to school, and then I'll ask you some questions from there.
All right, I'll start. So I'm born and raised Chicago, South Side all day. South Side, the West Side. Don't talk about that West Side. I don't know what she's talking about. So being from Chicago is very important to me. I didn't realize how much it would be a core piece of my identity until I moved to the Twin Cities. But I understand a lot about what it means to be a Black woman, kind of retrospectively through being a Chicagoan and being a part of Black communities and Black spaces in a very organic way. So I'm very, very appreciative of that upbringing. I am an only child. So it was me, my mama, and my cat for most of my upbringing. Stepfather and things too. It's a very quiet house. I just had my head in books for the most part. And when I got closer into high school, it was really important for me to get out of Chicago and out of Illinois. Not so much because of the location, but I just felt like I had been there my whole life. I need to go see something else. My cousin went to the University of Minnesota, so I came up here and visited, and I was like, cool, I'll just go there. I didn't put much thought into my college journey and process, so when I got into the U, I just kind of like cut it there. I was like, whatever they give me, we'll figure it out. God had his way, even in the midst of my very kind of lackluster college application experience. But and I moved here in 2011 to start as an undergrad at the U, and just kind of took off from there.
Nice. All right. What about you? Where are you from?
Originally from Chicago as well. My identity isn't as rooted in the city as it is for you. We actually moved out of Chicago when I was kind of young into a suburb called DeKalb, Illinois. It's a college town. But was a college town.
Is that SIU or NIU?
NIU.
NIU. Mom ended up going to NIU.
I did know that. She told me
Yeah, and my parents split early. Split when I was probably between the age of 2 and 4.
Okay.
And part of that split also got us out of Chicago as well. And so it was my mom, my brother, and myself. My little brother's 2 years younger than me. And it was just us three for a while. You know, my auntie and my cousins lived the floor right below us in the apartment building. I always had people over, always had friends over. It's a bit of a smaller town, so we kind of all knew each other. What's beautiful about the story is that with a single mom who was in college and also had internships, raising 2 boys, she was one of the internships she was working at was a daycare center. And at the daycare center, there was this little girl there who, excuse me, who was, showing up every day wearing the same clothes, and, she was clearly struggling. So my mom went to her mom and was like, look, you need a weekend off. I'll take her in for the weekend. You go and, get yourself together, take care of your stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
A weekend turned into a week turned into a month. Fast forward, I have a new little sister.
Yeah.
Right? So I have a mom who was both a single parent with 2 boys, and then somehow found the time and the grace and the heart to bring someone else into the family. So then it was just us 4 for a while. And then what got me out of Minnesota actually was my mom finished up her master's, she got remarried, and the man she married, Paul, he lived up here. And so once she got remarried, then I got up to Minnesota when I was probably 11 or 12.
Got it.
And so going, age 4 to 12 without a full-time father in the house, and then finally getting one, kind of changed the trajectory of how I thought about the world and how I thought about myself. And also being in Minnesota, right? Growing up with mostly black folks, and then you get to a place like, at first I was in Columbia Heights, where I was like, okay, this is rather similar to what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And then I jumped into Blaine, and that's where I grew up. And
What's that? She said fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. I learned a lot about myself there. And then it was really helpful for me, and I'll share more about this later on, but going to a mostly white school, and again, having these I had some identity issues and trying to figure out what was in the world and what I wanted to do. Had a real hard time my senior year. Didn't know where I wanted to go to school. I thought I was going to go play basketball, and that's what I thought I was going to do.
Yep.
And long story short, I got into, we were just talking about the ACT earlier.
Yeah.
Did decent on my ACT and got into Hampton University. And I was in their honors program. Part of the honors program is that they have you do a bunch of homework before you even get to school. So they sent me books and stuff to read and assignments to read over the summer. And so I'm on the plane, catching up on the work before I get there. And one of the books that they gave me was The Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama. I think this is the first, and this was in 2008. I finished high school in 2008. So this is May of 2008, where the primary's wrapping up. He's getting ready to be the nominee. And I'm reading this book about this guy. And for the first time, I started to see myself in somebody else, right? The same questions I had about what does it mean to be a young man? What does it mean to be a young black man? Thinking about my fathers and all these other things. And that was a huge turning point for me. I should know about that.
That's dope. Thank you. Okay, so this is the part I love because we could go so many different ways. Okay, what did you decide to study in college? Why? And are you doing what you studied?
Fun.
You got this one?
Yeah, I go. So when I think it's also fun to talk about the journey of figuring all that out. So in my senior year, thinking about where I wanted to go to school, I thought that I was going to be a biblical counselor. Okay. I thought that so my cousin that lives here in Lambers, he does marriage and family therapy with Christian Lens. I was very involved in my church, so I thought that I wanted to do the same. So when I was initially looking at schools, I looked at the U. They had religious studies, they had psychology. He did the same exact thing. So I thought I want to do the same exact thing. But also, when I visited the U, they're like, we've got, you know how these schools be. We've got, especially these Big Ten schools. We got over 100 majors and all these minors. You can study anything that you want. Even if you can't find a major, you can make a major. Right? So I was like, well, cool. Even if I might change my mind, there's something I can do. So as I was looking through everything, I noticed that they had, minors in African American studies. So I was like, cool, I can do a psychology major and a double minor in Afro studies and biblical studies. Okay. So I get to the U, And almost immediately I'm like, I don't want to do psychology. So then like we have a mutual friend, Sam, who's doing public relations. And I was starting to do some things in the Twin Cities, doing some open mic nights through, Blue Ink back in the day, if y'all, some people know about that. So I was like, ooh, I think I'm going to try to get into the journalism school to do public relations. And then started to take my Afro Studies classes, and I liked them. So I hated politics coming into school. I grew up fully in Chicago, which means I saw a lot of corruption. My mom worked for the city. She would talk so much about it. Like, she worked in the Department of Streets and Sanitation during the hired truck workers scandal and all that stuff. Like, I was like, this is, I don't want anything to do with this life. So coming out of my freshman year, I had a friend, his name is Cater, and he was like, hey, you want to go to this this party, this little house party? And I was like, cool, I'm going to go to a house party. Not the house party you thought.
Right.
So this was summer 2012. So this was how people who do electoral campaigns, they know what a house party model is. Essentially, like, you invite, like probably 10 of your friends into a house, and then either they're talking to you about a certain campaign, or they've invited an organizer in there to talk about a campaign. So he invited me to a house party he was throwing about Obama 2012. And I was like, Obama's cool, whatever. I don't know if I want to be involved in all of this. But he was like, hey, I'm starting this neighborhood team. It's just, a group of friends that, volunteer every so often, knock on doors, make phone calls about, getting Obama reelected. And I was like, well, I have this part-time job in the summer. It's only 12 hours a week. I'm bumming it at my friend's crib. This was back during the cavern days. Bumming in my friend's crib. I'm not doing really much. This was right after my freshman year. So I was like, sure, it's a good way to spend some time. And then quickly they ascended me into different levels of leadership in the team. He eventually got a job being a field organizer in Iowa. So my friend Ian and I kind of took over the team going into the school year, into the fall. And then we were able to take a class that allowed us to work on the campaign a little bit more closely, but still get school credit. And so part of what was really cool about that experience was that, especially going into the fall, when you're working for a campaign that's pretty well established to win, they'll start using you for other campaigns that are kind of connected in the same party, in the same community. So all of a sudden we were working with folks from like Keith Ellison's campaign. We were working with other folks from other campaigns. But also getting to know people who weren't working specifically for candidates, but also for issues. So, like, start to meet people from, like, Take Action and with NOC and other organizations. And I just thought it was so cool to be able to kind of bring people together, working on issues in our community for a given cause. And so that really made me want to put political science somewhere in my learning. I made it my minor. So what was my major? So I remember going to sit with my counselor at the time, Stephanie, who's now actually my soror. And I just was like, I don't really know what to study, but I really like what's going on in my Afro classes. I'm really learning a lot. Like, I can really see these connections. And I basically talked myself into studying African American studies. So literally, she was like, well, it sounds like you really like this major. And I was like, yeah, you're right, I'm a major. So I ended up declaring that fall of my sophomore year a major in African American studies and minor in political science. Fast forward throughout, I did a lot of stuff in undergrad. Not going to belabor a lot of it, but some of the things I did do, I did a lot of work in my major around history and public history. I did a fellowship with the Historical Society where I'm at now. And then I did a class with one of my Afro Studies professors where I did a lot of work researching kind of Twin Cities Black history and Black figures that fed into me being a McNair scholar. So I'm going to tell y'all now in college, if there's any type of national program where you can do research or anything like that, there's some really there's some renowned programs, whether it's McNair or if it's like Mellon Mays or something, do it. Just do it. You may not even want to like go into academia at some point, but the resources you get on the other side you can't match it. Like,
Absolutely.
if you ever want to go to grad school, it's free to apply.
Yep.
You get discounts with the GRE. Like, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
And that fed into my senior thesis. So I graduated with honors in African American Studies.
Gotcha. Which is kind of fitting now that you say you work at
Yes.
Sorority Society.
So after my journey after college has really been like a whirlwind, very interesting. I have organized full time. Ron and I work together at Neighborhoods Organizing for Change.
I thought the whole time I was like, I thought
Yes.
they both worked there, but
Yes.
maybe I made that up because y'all were just
No.
connected.
Oh, yeah,
No.
we did.
Got it.
So I have worked in community organizing full time and definitely utilized some things I learned in political science there and continue to utilize them. And now being at the Historical Society, I think what's beautiful about my major is that one is interdisciplinary, so I can literally use it kind of in any setting. I was working in nonprofits with youth and in school systems, and worked for a charter school, and worked for NOC, and now I'm at MNHS. But it's interdisciplinary. It cuts across all different types of fields.
Yeah.
I also think it's important because Afro Studies gave me a lens to look at what's happening in our community, our society, and our country through a very distinct understanding of the legacy of white supremacy and racism. And in any institution that you're in, like, just like I have to come with it in MHS, I've had to come in with it in past fields of work, especially with political science and how power operates, how organizing has helped me understand that in practice. It cuts across every field. I see it everywhere. I was actually just talking to my manager about how my organizing can help inform some of the things that maybe happen in our own organization. And so I think that's what's beautiful about it. Obviously, I've had to build my skill set mostly in practice. Outside of learning how to read, write, communicate critical ideas and thoughts, those are really clear skills that I have learned as an Afro major. And other skills I've really developed by practice with using my hands. Those are some really key things that I use all the time, everywhere I go.
Got it. That's what's up. What about you? What'd you study? What are you applying it now? Kind of give us a little bit of that.
Yeah, kind of a continuation of the story I shared earlier. So I get to Hampton, and I finish the book, and I'm in love with this. But when I was younger, in third grade, I had a tumor, actually. I had a surgery to get the tumor out. And since that moment, I always wanted to get into medicine. I wanted to be a surgeon, actually. I wanted to be a pediatric surgeon. I really wanted to. And I shouldn't say this on tape, but I'm going to say it anyway. At the time, I was really inspired by Dr. Ben Carson, actually. Right. At the time, he actually was somebody who wasn't a deplorable.
That's real. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, because at the time he was, he had performed the first surgery to separate conjoined twins. Yeah. Right. I mean, go down the list of the things that he had done, particularly as a black surgeon. That's somebody I was inspired by. Yeah. So y'all dig this up at some point in the future.
But I mean,
disclaimer. Right.
Dr. Ben Carson was one of those people who was like, he was very good at what
he
do.
And that's literally
I was to say,
it.
that's literally
it. So all through elementary school, middle school, high school, it's medicine, it's science, it's math. It's like, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a pediatric surgeon. And then I got to know a kid who didn't get to know him well, but I got to know a kid who ended up having terminal cancer and passing away. And I was like, I can't emotionally handle that day to day. I can't compartmentalize. I don't think I knew the word at the time, but I couldn't do that the way that doctors could. So a lot of my cousins actually are in pharmacy. They're pharmacists. They went to pharmacy school and everything. And I was like, okay, I can still stay in medicine, but I still get the kind of customer service aspect of it as well.
Got it.
And so when I got to Hampton, I majored in pre-pharm. That was one of the reasons why I went to that school, because particularly for an HBCU, had a pretty strong pharmacy school program. Get to campus and doing well in class, but I'm fired up, man. I'm fired up about this dude. I just read the whole book about Barack Obama. And I go and show up once a week to go door knock. Then I show up a couple times a week. Then my roommate was coming with me. Then the dorm floor was going. I mean, I was organized without knowing that I was organized.
Yeah.
But I was still studying pharmacy school, right? All my teachers were like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure this is where your passion is? I mean, the grades were good, but they could tell even back then that the passion and spirit wasn't there. So I fast forward to the election in 2008, November 4th, 2008, and the watch party is naturally in my room. and we're watching, and even until the moment, I did not think this guy would ever win. Right? I did not think that the country was ready for this man, no matter how talented, smart, whatever the campaign was, we weren't ready. Then they called Virginia for the Democrats. First time in I don't know how long.
Right.
And being at a school in Virginia on campus, going to other campuses, talking to other people about who he was and what we planned to do, we actually felt like we made a big impact. Like, we did this. We helped flip Virginia for the Democrats, right? And 11 minutes later, they called the election for Barack Obama. And you could hear a pin drop, like quiet, for at least 8 seconds. It felt like an hour. And then finally, you could hear the entire campus erupt in euphoria. Just like joy. People were singing and dancing. My birthday is November 5th, so an hour later, it was texting me like, happy birthday, we did it, birthday present.
Oh my God.
So I was on a high, right? And after that, I'm like, there's no way I can't be involved.
Got it.
But I still stayed in that. I transferred to UMD for a whole bunch of different reasons. At UMD, it was the same thing. I took a bunch of science classes and was doing well, and I finally took this cell biology class, because I was a biochem major, to get into pharmacy school. I took cell biology. I remember saying, I can't imagine myself doing this for the rest of my life. I'm not interested at all. Yeah. I am not passionate about it. I see kids in the front row asking questions, and they're super attentive, and you have to drag me into the room, right? So I'm like, this is not something I can study. And so I went to my academic advisor, and I was like, I shared exactly that story, that I do not feel comfortable in this. I see people passionate. I don't feel passionate about this. Yeah. She's like, I encourage you to drop all your classes and then pick up some liberal arts classes, because you haven't had any of those yet. Yeah. I focused on the core classes. One of the first classes I took was American Government Politics with Dr. Garrett Percival, and his wife. I showed there too. And in that class, it was the first class that I ever had that opened up the room for debate, that I was sitting in the front row, I was asking extra questions, I was doing outside reading, I was going office hours. I was really enthralled in this political government class. And I decided, well, this is what I'm going to major in. Yeah. Like, this is what I feel. And part of the motivation of going into pharmacy was, yes, I was interested in medicine, but I also wanted to make some coin. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Like, walking out making $120,000 as a 24-year-old or whatever is not bad at all. And I was discouraged from some people when I switched to political science, because they're like, what are you going to do with that? You're going to go to law school? What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, but I like this. Yeah. Someone had told me back then, if you do what you're passionate about, that talent and that joy will shine through that, and opportunities will start to open themselves up. Right? So you start talking about what I'm doing today, that's literally what happened. I started to lean into what my passions were, I started to lean in where my talents were, and doors literally, I kid you not, almost from the moment where I switched my major, just started flying open. I ended up getting an on-campus job that paid 3 times as much as the closest on-campus person did, right? Throughout college, had a ton of different opportunities, got to meet the mayor of Minneapolis at the time, R.T. Ryback, who gave me a great opportunity coming out of college. So that was a real pivotal moment for me of choosing that. And so the question was, what's the major? How do I get there? And am I doing it today? Yeah, every day. Right. The skills that I learned in political science are extremely transferable. I mean, they're soft skills, communication, analysis, right? Strong writing skills, that kind of thing. The biggest piece is recognizing the fact that politics exists in just about everything. Politics exists where there's power dynamics. The power dynamic at this table, right? There are gender differences, there are height differences, there are voice differences, right? There's politics in this space. And once I understood that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the crack cheat code now. I can figure out any organization, people. So yeah, that's how I got there, and that's what I'm doing. If I had any advice whatsoever, it's lean into your passions, right? The money's going to follow, the money's going to open up, I promise you. If people see your joy, if people see your passion, and that shines through other opportunities.
Yeah. I definitely can. You said earlier that, I just had it, but people were afraid that you wouldn't be successful because you chose that major. And I just want to encourage young people to not be pressured into making entire life decisions based on what your major is. It's pretty asinine, really, to tell 18, 19, 20-year-old young adults that their whole life is built on what piece of paper says that you studied in. It's actually quite ridiculous. That's not how life works. If you got it about political science, I got about Afro studies about 10 times over. They're like, what do you do with that? And I'm like, have you seen the rest of my resume? Have you seen the work that I put in outside of my major? Not saying that my major wasn't enough, but just me being the naturally active person I was, I'm like, I have a whole holistic,
Where can you be the most you?
Yeah,
Right?
but I have a holistic profile that I can show you,
right.
and you're in those classes to learn. You're not in those classes, especially at bachelor's level. At an undergraduate level, you're there to learn, to get exposure to what's out there, what you could possibly do, and do work outside of that can set you up. It's really when you get into graduate school that what you're studying is actually really tailored professionally, or if you're in an undergraduate track that's like very technical, like you were going towards pre-farm, like that's a very technical career. But I just want to encourage young people, like, you do not have to base your entire life future on what you're declaring.
This is what I was saying. I say this to my little sister a lot. She's 17 years old. She's getting ready to apply to college, the senior. She asks about this a lot. What should I major in? What do I want to do? I told her a couple of things. I'm like, look, the students who walk into undergrad undecided tend to graduate with higher grades and less time in school.
Yeah.
Why? Because they've opened themselves up to opportunities where they didn't run down the track and then run back off that track and then go to this next track, right? And so walking in undecided, I think, opens up your mind because you're going to change so much between when you graduate senior year and over the summer before you start freshman year, and then every semester, every single time after that. Yeah. So really giving yourself more options by opening up what's possible. Yeah, in your back pocket, you might really want to still be that doctor. In your back pocket, you still might want to do that other thing. But opening it up just to test to see if that's really what you want to do.
Absolutely.
Right? Taking other classes told me, I'm like, yeah, I really want to do this thing. And I took those other classes and I was like, I don't want to do it that bad because I'm already ready to switch.
Yeah.
Right? I share that with her. I also share that, and I say it with different terms, but I say, play the game that you're meant to win. Meaning, there's a lot of people who don't play games, so they don't participate in the thing if it's not on a track towards them being successful on that thing. So if you're good at math, you don't have to necessarily major in math, but make sure you emphasize math in the things that you do because that's a playing field where you're the best at. Yeah. The best athletes do it all the time to make sure they have home court advantage, right? Like it's the same thing versus individuals, right? Play the game that you have the best odds of winning. Yeah. Meaning lean into your talents, lean into your passions. Yeah. And I know people's parents are going to be like, no, you need to do this, do this, do this. And I'm not saying ignore what they say, but I am saying honor and respect that and explore that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to live with your own choices and you have your own consequences. And I think for me, that was the best advice some of the best advice that I ever got as an undergrad. And I think people need to have that comfort and that space to be able to decide their own future.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's one thing I think, I don't know if you would agree, but for those of my daughters sitting in the audience, I think that's one thing that I try to emphasize to you is like, what do you like to do? What do you want to do? And then figuring out how to do that. I think most young people don't get those messages enough. So you all answered most of the questions I was going to ask, which is great. So you didn't need any prompting, which I wasn't worried about. But one thing that some of our Connect alumni ask about a lot is, what is it like working in a predominantly white organization? Especially given like the backgrounds that you guys have and just like the experience, like even now, just what you're doing, like what advice do you give them? What is it like for you right now? What things are like things that you have figured out? What things do you struggle with? Like kind of just talk a little bit about that and just whoever doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'll say this. I think every institution and every organization has their own set of whatever's bureaucracy or culture, customs, whatever. Everyone has them, and I think when you work for a white institution, it's the same exact thing. And what carries in that institution, particularly for ones that are progressive, and particularly for ones that are liberal or open, is this built-in assumption that they're there as people. That we understand what you're going through. We're not the ones making it harder on you. It's that, you know what I mean? That kind of a thing. And what I've really struggled with is the balance between assimilation and survival. Yep. Right? I can fully jump in and assimilate and be just like everybody else pretty well, right? Beyond code switching, like literally chameleon. But you lose yourself, right? You start to sacrifice your values and you start to not speak up when something bothers you, or you ignore someone's idiotic comment in the room, or whatever the case is. And then I pivoted and said, no, I'm going to be myself, and I'm marching and do that. And I had that experience as well. Almost lost a job because of it, right? And so I think it's difficult because it's working in these white institutions and being a person of color and being a millennial adds another layer to it. Yeah. There are communications challenges. There are ways that we talk and ways that we go about things that other people in other generations, and particularly white folks, just don't do. Yeah. So I will say it's a challenge, but I think it's one of those things that we're actually built for this. Yeah. We actually cross cultural boundaries literally every single day, and we don't even know it. As children, we cross those boundaries. We cross them, going to different schools, or we cross them when we go to the grocery store, right? Particularly if you're in Minnesota, you're likely not in an area where you miss 100% somebody like you. Right? You're pretty close if you're white, but like if you're a person of color, you're not going to be in that space. Yeah. And so the skills that are used today in some of these institutions, I do a lot of political work for the DNC, for the DFL. These are very white spaces. Yeah. The skills I use to survive in those spaces are the exact same skills that I use to survive in this life. Right? We know how to code switch. We know how to be chameleons. We know how to speak multiple languages, so to speak. Right? We know how to how you turn on your white voice, right? When somebody picks up, you pick up the phone, you meet somebody, right? It's some of those little things. Absolutely. And I'm not saying we have to be less of ourselves, but I am saying that we have the ability to shift our way of operating so that we can survive. Now, absolutely. I don't think it should be just survival. I think that we need to be in these spaces to thrive as well. Yeah. So that's just sort of the survival part. The thriving now is when you open up your mouth and say, this isn't working for me. Yeah. Right? This setup isn't working for me. This way of communicating isn't working for me. The way we do business here is not working. Yeah. Right? A, I got to figure out how that works. Or more importantly, B, I need to put that out in the world and force some of these institutions to change their way of thinking as well. Because they're not going to do it if we keep our mouths shut. Yeah. Part of the things that help keep me going in these spaces is making sure that I connect with the other people of color in the space as well, because they're going through the exact same thing. Yeah. I try my best not to undercut anybody, but I try my best not to make their journey harder internally because they're going through what I'm going through too. And it's also great to be able to talk to somebody about it. Like, hey, you can't believe what this person said in this meeting, man. Like, I know I can't believe that they're saying this 2019, right? Like that level of camaraderie and that level of trust is more than necessary to thrive in those spaces. Yeah. And the biggest key is you can't lose yourself. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to lose yourself. Matter of fact, there's an incentive for you to lose yourself. Yeah. There's a financial benefit of you not being yourself in these spaces. And you've got to know that that's coming so that you don't end up getting tripped up or you don't get surprised about, they bring you in for this opportunity. They bring you in from this, and you start to get a little more separated from your people. You look up a couple of years, and we know people in the community like this. Yeah. We can name 10 people right now that got sucked up into these opportunities and then lost themselves or forgot themselves. It's not worth it. Yeah. There's not a single opportunity out there that's worth sacrificing who you are, sacrificing your values. And that's the thing you got to wake up every single morning. When I walk into City Hall, every single day, I walk past the hallway of mayors of the city. There's two female mayors in that list, and there's one black mayor. That's it. I don't even know how many mayors are on that thing. It's 550 of them. And so I see that, and I purposely walk down that hallway every day to remind myself why I'm here, to remind myself that I'm not just me in this space. I represent all the other people that helped me get here and all the other people that want to be here in the future. That's who I represent. And so in these white spaces, it's not just, I'm in a space where everybody looks like me. We're interrupting legacies here. Right? We're interrupting traditions. We're interrupting customs. We're interrupting, in a lot of ways, some of these inevitabilities. So the weight of being there is so much more. Yeah. That literally goes through my mind every day in some of these spaces where I'm like, this ain't just about Ron, and it brings a different kind of attitude and it brings a different kind of gravitas, if you will, to the position. Yeah. So it's a lot for us to think about when we go, but I think that's what's necessary for us, right? Yeah. When we don't just represent ourselves.
That's dope.
Can't.
What about you?
All right, how I navigate non-one spaces. I would say I was one of those kids that since I went to schools at an early age that were more racially mixed and diverse. Those spaces felt a little bit more normal to me. And then I went to high school and I met a bunch of people from a whole nother side of the city that had no understanding of who I was. And who people like me were, and I started to get really isolated. I'm from the south side.
I
From the north side, actually.
Okay. That's what I was actually thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
The south side, the west side people was cool.
Okay.
And you know, it really got me to be more insular to my community in the sense. And so when I went to the U, you know, I was on a predominantly white campus, but because I had built so many relationships with spaces that were more tailored to like who I was and what my identities were, it didn't really feel like it. And then I left college, and I went into my first two positions over the first 2 years after I was out of college were Black-led organizations in North Minneapolis. And it's still very important to me to work in institution building in our Black communities. Like, in a perfect world, I can build my career back into those spaces. Yeah. And Ron and I worked together in one of those organizations, and obviously there were challenges within, like he was saying, there's still dimensions of power and bureaucracy dynamics that even show up in our own community spaces. So I just want to assure people it's not perfect anywhere you go. Humans still be human.
That's right.
But at least, like, right.
Humans still be human.
We still be human, but at least, you know, there was still a level of like familiarity and comfort being in those spaces. And then I eventually moved to an organization. I was a staff of probably about 40, about 20 that were in the main office, and I was probably one of like 3 Black people. I was an associate, no, 4. There was one associate, there was me, there was like a manager, a program manager, and then the finance director was Black, and then one of the like office assistants. And it's the first time in a long time I had a white person manage me. It was mostly like the culture was very steeped in whiteness, no matter like what you want to say about it. Like, just there's like, first of all, there is a culture of whiteness. That culture permeates office cultures and professional spaces. And though I had been conditioned in some of those spaces, it still felt very uncomfortable kind of being in a space where I just kind of felt like not a lot of people would understand who I am, you know. I experienced a lot of imposter syndrome at that time. I felt very isolated at that time. And very, like, also I felt like my job wasn't necessarily as challenging, so I also just felt like professionally kind of like plateauing and stagnant. I laugh about this story now, but it was my first day at work, and I lived like far north near Patrick Henry, going to downtown Minneapolis, and I was running late because I was like, oh God, my hair, I need a retwist. What am I going to wear on my first day? My last few jobs, I have to wear like business casual like that, and I got to figure. Mind you, I knew how to dress business casual, but I was like, ugh, but what am I going to wear today? Rushing. And now I'm like halfway speeding down the street, and there was this light, but then there was like a light right after the light. It was a very weird setup on the street. So like I go through the light, but then the other light goes on red, and all the cars stop, and I just hit the back of this car. And so I'm like, oh my God, I didn't be late for work. I just got in an accident. What is happening? Like, I tell my like new manager I'm running late, and she's like, it's fine. Like, this woman is literally the like nicest, chillest person ever. But in my head, I'm like, I'm about to be late to my first day at this new job that I have no understanding what this culture is going to be, and I'm focusing so much on that I can't even drive safely down the road. Number one, don't do it. That job is still going to be there. They hired you for a reason. They think that you're qualified. They think that you're exceptional. They think that you're going to do this job well. Okay. They don't know whether or not you're going to mess up, but they're coming into this believing in you. That's why they gave you an offer letter. That's why they gave you tens of thousands of dollars to work there, plus hopefully benefits. You don't have to speed to get to work on the first day. Like, it's okay. They're not going to fire you. But, like, that was actually, like, a real thing. Like, thinking back on it, like, how utterly absurd it was that I really saw myself as having to do so much just to make sure people had a good impression for me. Meanwhile, I'm not even going to talk about some of the stuff I noticed in that office. Some of the ways people showed up, the ways that they admitted their emotions, and all the things, you know what I'm saying? Those are definitely things that we're not going to try to do. I'm not trying to be overly emotional in the workplace or be vulnerable in those type of ways. Like, those are things that we definitely put our guards up on because we don't want anybody to perceive us a certain kind of way. And so those are things that, like, I definitely think about, and I've been trying to deconstruct over the years. Now that I work at the Historical Society, it's definitely predominantly white space. You have to think about this institution was one of the few that was created before Minnesota became a territory. It literally is the repository of Minnesota history. There is a culture, a Minnesota culture, and that Minnesota culture is not inclusive. And so our job, we're going back, we literally in our presentation that we've created as a department talking about our work, at the very end we have a timeline, and we say this is when the MHS was created, when Minnesota was a state, when the Capitol was built, when we moved into this building, and then here are the 5 years that we've been doing. And our goal is literally to really wrestle with over a century of a culture that did not focus on being inclusive intentionally from an institutional commitment. And so it's being in a space where you're working in diversity and inclusion work in a predominantly white institution is it's an interesting dynamic. Thank God I get paid to be asked questions on how to be inclusive. Always get paid. That's a real thing. Like, people, we were talking earlier, but like, people want your expertise, people want your knowledge, always get paid for it, you know? So always. That's typically something I would not want to do with my emotional labor is teach specifically white people how to be inclusive, but they get paid for it, so I can manage. I also have a really strong, like, my particular department is largely people of color and indigenous, majority people of color and indigenous. And so having that support is, like, very crucial to my role, and really crucial to how I show up in the space. Like, I don't think I'd be able to do the work without our team in the way that we show up for each other. That's what really makes the work really fulfilling, is how we show up for each other. And I think, like, the way I show up in my work, I'm really starting to understand a lot more of, like, what my value is inherent to the skills that I've built coming into this role, the work that I've done in organizing, the work that I've done in education, you know, all these other things, the history that I've studied, all those things, scholarship I've created, and bringing that into the work I do, and having that really be the basis for me to, like, not be apologetic about the truths that I assert. And that's powerful, because I've seen so many people ahead of me, you know, people I look up to, walk around with that confidence, even though I know it's difficult for them to do the work as well. They're just as human as I am, but I never fully understood, like, how did they get to that point? And I'm going through this process of, like, wow, like, I'm the stuff. I know who I am. I know my worth. And I'm going to make sure that, like, people approach me with that. And so that's really, like, what Ron was saying, going from surviving to thriving. Like, when you truly, like, know what you're bringing to the table, I know that I'm the only person that could do my job the way I do it. And looking at the things that I've accomplished just in a year alone, I'm like, nobody could have done this except me. And you all benefit from this. You benefit from every piece of labor, every hour of work I put into my work. You have to remember that they benefit off of it, and they make money off of it more than you're making in your job. And so when it comes to those conversations, when people want to dance around your value or gaslight you in some ways, like, I've been gaslighted talking about trying to get a raise, you know, because I'm out here struggling, trying to pay rent, and then you want to talk about, you know, well, really, this, that, no, like, here are things that I've done, and even if it was day one, here's my value, you know. And so I think that's really important. So I feel like like I'm just starting to realize a lot more, even as recent as this week, like being in spaces even with leadership and asserting the truths and holding leadership accountable. Because if they are not, you have to really understand if leadership is not in some way on board, there's always going to be something to overcome when it comes to creating more inclusive organizations. And so what are the ways that you are using your access? Because at the end of the day, you have access to be in a space that plenty of other people in your community don't have. You know, like being in the role that you have. There's plenty of other people outside of your organizations and institutions that don't have that access. And it's your responsibility to bring what they need to the table. Absolutely. And so when you're feeling like really like worn down, one, where's your community? You know, like your community both in your workplace and outside your workplace. I have very clear boundaries as well. Like I don't take my work home. And I think that's like, we are in a culture of hyper productivity. And so we're told that we need to be working on work even when we're not working on work. No, I have very clear boundaries. I'm not taking that home. If I don't have to, we can always be picked up tomorrow. That's rest and that's self-care. So where's your community inside of work, outside of work? Where are your boundaries? Because especially in D&I work, the emotional labor is huge. You're just taking on so much emotional labor. So where are the ways that you're taking care of yourself? And where are the ways are you bringing people that don't have access to those spaces to the table and advocating for them?
All right, so to wrap up, because again, y'all don't need any prompts. This has been super rich, and so I encourage you to watch this again and go back. Again, when you, like, I knew I was good when I invited y'all to come, so I wasn't worried about that. I just think the value that you all and so many of our other guests like can provide. There's somebody watching this that sees themselves as you, or I've been there, or I'm trying to figure this out. And so, on a last note, what's one thing we both talked about, like thriving, like just one piece of advice, and either it could be repetitive, what you said before, but that you would give a young person, a young professional on how to thrive.
Whew. Number one, put yourself first. Literally, put yourself first. If you are spending more time on other people's dreams and aspirations and serving other people and making other people money and not enough time on building up your own dreams and aspirations, then you have a balance issue. And that's like 100. And I think it's really important for young people at this stage of life to think about that, because they're told constantly they have to pay their dues, they have to work twice as hard, they have to grind. And it's not saying that you aren't going to have to work harder than other people that have more privileges than you. But if you aren't thinking about how everything that you're doing is serving some greater cause with you at the center, even the way that you serve the community, how is that tapping into your skills, your passions, and serving from your overflow and not from the actual cup that you got to drink out of. Because serving comes from your overflow. It comes from the blessings that you have been filled with so much that you have blessings to give to others, but it's not coming from your core, because then you're depleted. You have nothing to give. So you need to put yourself first. Like, you need to make sure that you're very diligent about how people and things are ordered in your life and what purposes they serve and what purposes you serve. That has been the biggest lesson of my 2019. Looking back on the years since I've graduated college, I spent a lot of time doing good things and being good to people, but being absolutely spent. And that's not how you thrive. It's just like your balance is off. So you have to get back on balance, or get on balance. And I honestly think like that is, get your spirit together. Whatever fills your spirit, whether it's if you are connected to a religion, or if you just meditate, or just if you love music, like whatever connects what fills your spirit, all those things are essential to you thriving and you having a personal discipline that's not attached to anybody else. Like, that's where your rituals, what is your routine on a daily basis. Developing that personal discipline is essential. Get a therapist. Like, you know, like honestly, like if you need one, go find one. Most college campuses have counseling services. Get on some, like, look, if you need to get some insurance, get on that state insurance, get that medical assistance, get that free insurance. Go see somebody. Like, no, seriously, because young people are struggling so much. They're so pressured into making sure they're being, you know, excelling in all these spaces, and having an understanding of their life that they just don't have yet. Your brains are still developing. Your brains are still developing until 25. And so it's just not realistic for you to have everything together, but we treat you like that. And this country treats you like that, and it's not fair. So go talk to somebody about it. So I think those are really essential things for young people to understand what thriving will look like for them. And I didn't learn them until 25, 26. So
but what's important is you learn them.
But I learned them.
You know it now.
And the future looks much brighter.
There you go.
But you have the opportunity to work on that now, just by me laying that on you, and hopefully that sits in your heart.
That's what's up. Thank you. What about for you?
Yeah, I'll say a couple things. One, in order to thrive, I think you got to know your why. Why do you do this? Why do I show up every single day and do this work? What's the bigger thing that's driving me? Right? What's driving me isn't the day to day. What driving me really isn't my salary. What's driving me is my vision for the world and how I can shape it. Right. So whatever your why is, make sure you know that one. Right. Make it real personal. My sister and my nieces are a huge part of my why. I'm trying to create a better world for them. Almost every single day, that's what I'm thinking about. The second thing I'll say is, and I got this advice a while ago and I love it. Someone told me once, be the designer of your life, right? Not the observer of it. Right? So a lot of us live day to day and we're watching our life go by, right? Me, I watched my summer go by. I did a lot of stuff and it just flew by, right? And once you start to be in a position where you think of your life, I'm going to design my life. Not even dictate or architect my life, but I'm going to design it. It has a fluidity to it, but it also has an intentionality around it where I am literally going to be the person who carves out what my life looks like. And the final piece I'll say is, this is also great advice that I got once, was, they said it differently, but this is the way I'll say it because in politics, every single day wake up casting a vote for your future self, or cast a vote for your future identity. And what I mean by that is you have to have a picture in your mind of who you want to be, right? Because winners and losers have the same goal, right? They have the exact same goal. So what separates the two? Right? I think what separates the two is less of a focus on the goal and more of a focus on the process, right? If you think about just a goal, it's very easy to feel like a failure because you're not going to hit your goals every single day. You're not. Think about your life as a process. You can do a process every single day, whether or not you hit that goal. Right? I have a goal of, being in better shape. At first, my goal was work out every day, but now my goal is be in better shape. And every day, I cast a vote for that future person. Whether it's showing up to yoga, showing up to the gym, eating a little better, whatever the case is, on my best day or my worst day, I still cast a vote forward. That's what I was going to be. Right? Know your why, design your life, cast a vote for your future identity.
Dope. Man. Such a rich conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation, man.
Man,
appreciate it.
Super excited. I'm telling you, go watch this again. Watch it again. We're going to figure out. And they're like just regular people. So
call, text,
I was
follow,
going to say, in the invite, there's, I attached you guys' LinkedIn profiles. I promise you, you can look them up, send them an email. They're very approachable. That's the one thing is I'm always like, I want to invite people on here who are just regular folks that will
anytime
take a
call, text, literally knowledge to share and willing to give.
Absolutely.
I actually facilitate a number of team programs at the Historical Society. Our department also runs a number of college fellowships. All of those opportunities are paid.
Opportunity paid.
Paid.
There it is.
We're getting ready to start recruitment for our History Museum Fellows program for undergraduates at the University of Minnesota. And we also have another fellowship, our INC fellowship, that is open to other Twin Cities colleges and universities. And so not only that, I'm like, you can come and talk to me, but I actually have opportunities if you are interested. And we really encourage young people that aren't thinking about history and museums as a career to try these programs out. because there's so much more in that. It's really about how do organizations like ours really start to wrestle with how to better serve diverse communities, and what does that look like, and what does it mean to tell diverse narratives. So just want to put my little plug out there. You can connect with me if you're interested.
That's good. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No, don't worry about the end part. Oh, that was dope. Hey, that was dope. Thank you so much.
I'm not going to touch the button.
That was awesome.
That was fun. Thanks so much.